the next few steps, we're going to install the drive shaft. So we're going to need the pillow blocks. And it's important that the pillow blocks and the axle are nice and smoothly meshed. So you can see it's a little bit tight right now. So you want to make sure that it can spin easily, but with no wobble. So what we're going to do is we're just going to remove a little bit of the residue from inside the holes in the pillow blocks. So again, we're just using the 220 grit sandpaper. And just removing just enough material to get rid of the residue and to remove any ridges or machine marks that are left by the laser. That's one. And that's the second one. So I'm just going to reassemble this and double check, just see how it works. And it's going to be assembled like this when we actually install it. So of course now it's not perfectly aligned, but it looks like both these are, there's enough clearance there that it's going to run smoothly. So I can apply the graphite to the hole. And that's one. Do it from both sides here just to make sure we get a good coating on. That's one. That looks pretty good. That's the other one. So you can see I got a good coat on there. And we're going to do the same thing, apply a little bit of graphite to the wheel as well. So you want to have it come out about 1/4 of an inch. So just for reference, about this far. So I'm just going to make a mark. And it's not exact. It's just you want to make sure that there's enough. But you don't want to get it to the point where we're going to be applying glue. So about 1/4 of an inch. And I'm making sure that I get a good amount on there. Because once the whole thing's put together, you can't really add more later. So take the time, put plenty on now. A little bit more here. And of course we're going to do both sides because the pillow blocks are going to be on both sides. And here we go. There we go. Both sides have it. And now we need the cross brace R. And while I'm popping it apart, so grab the base plate here. I'm just going to get rid of the pieces that might still be in there. And I need first time with the other plate, there's this spacer tool. And this is just a tool to keep everything aligned. There we go. So this is going to be glued onto the base. So I'm going to make sure that where it's going to be glued, I'm going to be able to get a good bond. And it's going to be glued onto the pillow blocks. So where it touches the pillow blocks, we want to make sure that the glue is going to hold there as well. Alright, so we got a nice clean surface, and it's very important which way you glue this. So this is the mark side. The mark side has to go down, and this is going to be glued like so. So again, doing a quick check, make sure that it fits. Apply the glue. And it doesn't really matter which way it goes. I've just positioned it so that the marked side is facing away, so it's a little bit more hidden when it gets assembled. Now we're going to sand the matching parts here. So where the glue is going to mesh, we're going to and down in the slot. There we go. And the same for the other one. So now we're going to assemble this onto the base. And it's important that all the parts get meshed very well here. So you're now going to assemble the flywheel to the pillow blocks. Again, one last check, make sure everything looks good there. And these are going to sit like this. And it's important that everything connects, everything sits properly on in the slots in the base, and everything's fully engaged. So just do a quick check beforehand to make sure that the parts fit. They do. Okay, so now we're going to apply the glue. So it's important to put the glue on all the parts that are going to connect. So the bottom here, okay, so we got the glue there. And then these faces here are also going to be in contact with the pillow blocks. So it's important to make sure that you get a good amount of glue on there, because these parts are in motion quite a bit, so you want to make sure you have a good bond here. So now we're going to place this in here. Making sure everything gets seated properly. So everything's down all the way. And then there's a spacer tool here. And what the spacer tool does is it makes sure, there we go. The spacer tool just makes sure that the pillow blocks are forced against here, and it just presses the wheel up against one side. So it won't be able to turn now, that's fine, but that's going to hold everything in place while the glue sets. So we'll just give that a few minutes to set, and then we'll come back and continue on with centering the flywheel. So while that glue is setting, we'll prepare a couple of the axle spacers, T. So you need 2 of them. That's 1. That's 2. And I can just remove any rough edges on that. So I'm going to place graphite on the face of these, one side. That's 1. That's 2. So this is one of the more critical steps. It's really important that you get this flywheel centered exactly between the 2 marks. So the glue should be dry because I'm using the CA glue. I'm going to remove the spacer. So that's going to allow the flywheel to rotate now. So that's good. And now we're going to press a spacer on each side of the axle. And on this side. And when you're pressing the spacer on, support the axle so that you're not putting the pressure on the pillow blocks. So you want to make sure that you're pressing on the axle, not on the pillow block. So I'm going to slide it to get it somewhere close, and do the same on the other side. Now, the idea here, I can use this as a tool actually as to press as well. The idea here is to center the wheel with the 2 axle spacers so that it's exactly centered between the 2 upstanding pillow blocks, and that there's just enough space so that it's not tight against the center. So I can back this one off a little bit more. And tighten this one just a little bit. So what you want to make sure is that there's not too much play side to side so that the flywheel touches the side, but that it's not too tight that the spacers are binding against the pillow block. So that's just about perfect there. There's just a little bit of play, but whether I pull it to this side or I push it to that side, the flywheel's not going to touch the pillow blocks. And you can see how nice and smoothly that runs. So we're good, and we're ready to move to the next step. So now we're going to install the crank. So this is going to go on this side. So again, if this is the front and this is the back, this is the left side, this is the right side of the engine. So the crank goes on the left side of the engine. So we're going to apply some glue. There we go. And we're going to press, again, putting the pressure on the axle, not on the pillow blocks. We're just going to press that all the way down. And so that should be nice and snug against the retaining ring, but it shouldn't move the retaining ring at all. So now you have the crank attached. So now we're going to go to the other side. We're going to apply glue. There we go. We've got a decent amount, maybe just a little bit more here. There we go. And now we're going to install the eccentric. But what's really important is that the relationship between the two cranks is correct. So it's got to be 90 degrees. So we're going to make sure that the main crank is pointed straight down. And then we're going to press the eccentric straight forward. So again, checking again, make sure that's straight down, not straight forward. And we're going to press this all the way down. There we go. So again, this is down, that's straight forward, a little bit out of alignment. So I'm just going to make sure that the alignment's perfect. No, it looks really good. So that's that straight down, that's straight out. So again, you want to make sure that the crank is flush against the retaining ring, but that you didn't move the retaining ring so that the flywheel's jammed. All right, so now it didn't matter which way we put the flywheel on, because now we're going to trim the axles on both sides. So let's go ahead and do that. That's one side. And we'll do the other side. And we can just use a little sandpaper to tidy that up a little bit. It's nice and flush. Very good.